Hi, Mystic and Mechanic, back at you again, Justice Diodario.
I'm Joe Burrell.
So we're therapists in Renton.
Family therapists.
We happen to have ADHD.
Yes.
We help a lot of people with ADHD. And so we went to talk to a guy who's an expert in ADHD. By the way, same thing as ADD. I usually say the H, Joe doesn't, same thing. We go to see Dr. Ron Sterling up at the Adlerian Society thinking, hey, we should learn more about this because we see it all the time. He basically blows us away. What was your take on it?
Yes, I've read a lot of books on ADHD. I've known I've been ADHD since I was 16, and pretty much everything I read has been the same sort of rehash of the conventional thinking, which is helpful in some senses, but what he had to say was so many more magnitudes helpful for me from a therapist and from just a person living with this brain difference that we want to just give you a little taste of it today to get things going.
Yeah, and so he talked about this idea that when you have ADHD, you have less RAM or working memory. And you got a really great visual for how to explain that.
Yeah, part of the reason why I go by the mechanic and he goes by the mystic is I used to be a carpenter. So anyways, a little PVC pipe for a metaphor here. So here's the simple and incredibly helpful, in my opinion, model of understanding what ADHD is. It's basically not enough dopamine in your brain. If you don't have enough dopamine, you don't have enough working memory. So this pipe represents working memory of a neurotypical brain, if you want to call it that. It has enough dopamine to make the neurotransmitters work, so we have working memory. Well, what is working memory? It is basically the present moment, 8 seconds or so. If you think of a computer, it's like the RAM on a computer. It's what would allow you to open up multiple pieces of software at the same time and run them smoothly. You could have a really fast computer with no RAM. You could open up one program really fast and it would work great, but you open up 3 or 4, the computer's going to start to run very poorly because it can't manage the present moment data, essentially.
Or it just crashes on you.
Or it just crashes on you. Yeah, exactly.
It starts to smoke.
So, if this is your working memory, these would be data load. This would be data that you're dealing with through the 5 senses throughout the day, including thoughts and past experiences that sort of intrude into the present moment, all right? So, neurotypical brain, the non-ADD brain, the dopamine optimal brain, we'll refer to it in a lot of different ways, but basically, you know, I get up in the morning and I'm hungry. That hunger sensation is in there. I know I need to get ready and I have 30 minutes. Well, I've sort of got a clock running in my brain. Mom just told me that I forgot to pick up my socks. Okay? Well, so I need to go pick up my socks.
Joe doesn't actually still live with his mom.
I don't live with my mom. Now you messed up my whole metaphor here. Okay, so
what else are you putting in that RAM?
Right. So here, these are all the points of RAM. I don't need to overdo this, but you can keep track of them all and you get it done, including the socks, because Mom's going to get ticked off if you don't take care of the socks. All right. Here comes ADD. Are you ready for this? If you're ADD, this is going to just really resonate for you. I'm hungry. Mom said to pick up my socks. Hey, look at my computer screen. Squirrel.
Donuts.
Boy, donuts. I got to go to school soon. Who's on first? You know, and guess what the brain does
There's
when...
something I forgot.
I mean, what does the brain do when it's overloaded?
Starts to smoke.
It starts to smoke. It creates a stress response.
I call it driving with your parking brake on.
Yeah, yeah. And basically, we shouldn't call ADD attention deficit disorder because it's so deceptive, because so many people with ADHD can pay attention to things just fine if they're interesting. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. When things are interesting, our dopamine levels go up, by the way. Fixes the problem with the working memory.
Right.
So it should be called distractibility disorder. So those two things alone, hugely beneficial for understanding this.
Yeah, and just like you talked about with the golf balls falling out the other side, if that's continually happening, the type of ADD that I have is a little bit more enigmatic. I like to call it sensory amplification from Ron Sterling's work, because it actually feels like my senses are turned up a little bit. And so that's making more and more data come into a smaller bit of RAM. My brain, fortunately, has a really frickin' fast processor. So I'm going ding, 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 present, ding, 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 present. And I can do all the things that appear normal. And so I was 36 before I diagnosed myself.
Yeah, yeah.
But, you know, the way that I also just draw it out for people a lot of times, and yes, we did get the feedback that you can't see anything that I'm drawing. Fortunately, it's not super important, but you can also get the PDF from the last one if you sign up for our newsletter. But anyway, history is a big thing taking up space in your brain. So as you get older, you're not going to be able to remember as well because your memories are taking up a lot of that space. Oh, that smell reminds me of that thing that happened in the past. Guess what? I wasn't actually present to what was happening.
Another piece of data.
And so you're just going to stack on things that are going on. These are like the golf balls. It's just a different way of illustrating it. But, you know, I opened up a business, you know, and you know what? I have, you know, around 20 people coming in that I'm trying to hold their stuff and help them with their problems. You know what? I'm also married and I have a couple of kids, and that's actually my biggest priority. I like to help other people, I like to run my business, and at the same time, I want to spend most of the time with my family. They're on my mind, taking up space. And, you know, then who doesn't worry about money? Who doesn't get pissed off when they get stuck in traffic? Who doesn't have somebody that is their Moriarty, you know? You're just going to pile on stuff. So I get this, you know, privileged position of starting to learn about ADD, and first I see you go through it. Do you mind sharing how you discovered how it applies to you?
Well, so I was diagnosed when I was 16 originally, and luckily I had a really astute mother who was a kindergarten teacher, and I started getting into trouble when I was 16. I started crashing cars. I crashed 2 within 6 months after I got my driver's license. So that was like a big red flag. And basically, I was being really impulsive with my driving. And so,
getting some dopamine.
Yeah, and it was increasing my dopamine level. All this dangerous behavior. So my mom took me in. I got diagnosed and got put on some medication, and it helped me quite a lot, but it had a ton of side effects. And so I ended up getting off of it, but my grades went up somewhat dramatically. And so then basically fast forward to seeing Dr. Ron Sterling's presentation, and one of his ideas is that you don't have to have side effects. So I'm like, well, that's great that you think that, but being the experimentative type of person that I am, I actually went into a doctor and I went and applied his thinking and tested, can I find one that doesn't have any side effects? Turns out that I could. So I found that getting back on an ADHD medication has made my life so much less work, because I really had no idea how many workarounds that I had to do to deal with the fact that I don't have enough of a data closet. So I live and die by my Google Calendar, for example. I put my keys in the same place every time. You know, I have stacks of papers in certain ways, so I'll accidentally see the thing that I have to do because it'll be at the top of the stack, for example. So there's these millions of workarounds that I've had to do. I didn't even realize I was working so hard.
And those are skills.
And they're amazing skills, and I teach them to ADHD people all the time, because the medication didn't fix everything. It just made it 75% easier for me.
And it's obvious from the outside. You know, you're talking about working less hard, but I'm seeing you come online and just plugging away at health goals, life goals, all sorts of different stuff, you know? And meanwhile, I'm like, oh, it doesn't really apply to me. After a year of sitting on all this data, all of a sudden, I got this crazy anxiety for no apparent reason. Used to be I had good reasons, right? I had young kids, I had started a business, I'm, you know, helping other people who are telling me heinous stories all the time. There's crazy stuff happening in the world, you know, whatever it is. All of a sudden, you know, I got this big anxiety, and I do these rating scales again, and my workarounds are no longer working, you know. I mean, you'll see I like to do a lot of presence practices, Tai Chi, exercise, eat right, all the stuff I try and do, take the supplements, I tried everything. It's basically what happened. And finally I needed this help from the medication. And when I dialed it in, I could feel it. And like I could see Joe going through it, people could see me and be like, whoa, what's up, dude? Like, you're getting your to-do list done. And the thing that really blew me away was this relationship piece, where now that I know the overwhelm is happening and I know I'm flipping my lid and I can feel when it's happening, I have more options. And this is what this is all about. It's right in our wheelhouse of, we're talking about something that really helps a lot of people feel better if they can apply this really simple assessment of ADHD and way of treating it. And so we want to get the word out, and we want to hear from people, what your experience is, and hopefully we make enough sense over time that you can learn about some ADHD stuff too.
Yeah, we're planning many more videos similar to this that dive into very specific topics. Today we're really just trying to give you a little taste of what's to come. So hopefully you found this useful, and we definitely want feedback, because we would much rather create a video based on what 10 people say, hey, can you tell us about X, Y, or Z, versus deciding what we think people want to hear. I mean, obviously we have an idea of that due to our practices and what we talk about all day long in our practices, but shoot us an email. We love to hear.
And you know what? That's also why we made the first 2 videos. So see when you're overwhelmed and you're flipping your lid, how do you feel? And start to bring this idea in the mix. You don't have to go the same route of finding medication to help you. I hate medication, but it was the easiest thing to help me out, and it's actually kind of inexpensive. And like you were talking about, you don't have to settle for side effects. So this isn't a pharmaceutical commercial. This is us trying to help people because it's really helped us to identify when we're flipping our lid, when we're not storing data, and how we can have plans and workarounds to deal with these situations. Because at the end of the day, all this stuff is about you're human, and there's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
You've been through stuff. You might be wired a little bit different, but when you unpack the whole thing, there's nothing wrong with you.
I love the concept. Another therapist I know uses this term, meat suit. We inherit this meat suit, and we got to try to figure out how to get it to do what we want it to do as best we can, and then be able to let go of the rest. And so to me, that's one of the keys of living a successful life. And so we're just here to help folks be able to decode this meat suit they've got and come up with new ways of helping themselves out.
Yeah. And then when you do that, you get to also uncover what you're good at, what your skills are,
yes,
and the resources that you're bringing to the world.
Yes.
So stay in touch with us and check out the other videos. Let us know what you want us to do in the future.
Okay, about 10 times more entertaining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny how we